Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at AI and the future of work.
Huh?
You guys sent in this fascinating research article called Artificial Intelligence, Workers, and Future of Work Skills.
Okay.
And get this.
Yeah.
It starts off with these quotes from like 40 years ago
Wow.
about, how microprocessors were going to change the way we work.
I see.
And it's amazing how those predictions kind of played out.
Yeah.
And now it's like AI is the next big wave.
Is it like?
So I guess I'm wondering, where do we even begin to understand this whole, scope of AI?
Well, I think the term artificial intelligence itself can feel really big.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of covers a lot. But basically, you can think of it as any technology that can, learn and problem solve and perform tasks.
Yeah.
Tasks that we normally think of as requiring, human intelligence.
Right.
So that includes things like machine learning, natural language processing, image recognition.
Yeah.
Even all these tools that everyone is talking about these days, like ChatGPT, Dave Lee.
Right.
They all fall under that AI umbrella.
It seems like every day there's a new tool, a new headline. So how do these things actually work? Is it all just smoke and mirrors?
Well, not quite smoke and mirrors. At their core, a lot of these AI systems, what they do is they're trained on these huge, massive data sets.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically look for patterns in the data.
Okay.
And then, based on those patterns, they can do things like generate text or make predictions, compose music even.
Wow.
It's kind of like pattern recognition, but it's on a scale that most of us can't even comprehend.
Right.
And that's kind of where the power comes from.
I can see how some problems could arise there. So what are some of the limitations of AI? We're not going to have, AI doctors performing surgery tomorrow, are we?
I don't think so. You bring up a good point. There are definitely areas where AI is still, I'd say, in its very early stages.
Okay.
And yeah, high-stakes fields like medicine, law, HR, these are good examples. I think we need to be really cautious there. And then there's also the issue of bias in AI.
Yeah.
So, if the data that an AI is trained on reflects real-world prejudices, the AI can actually amplify those problems.
Yeah, I've heard about that happening with some of those, hiring algorithms.
Exactly.
Almost like the AI is inheriting our worst tendencies in a way.
It's true. And I think it really highlights the need for really thoughtful design and oversight as we, incorporate these technologies more and more into our lives.
Absolutely. So we've got a grasp on what AI is, some of the challenges.
Uh-huh.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how this is all impacting, jobs, the way we work.
Sure.
We've all heard the rumors robots are coming for our jobs. Is that really the case?
Well, I think the situation is a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay.
I would say AI is changing work in three major ways.
Okay.
It's replacing some tasks, it's complementing others,
Uh-huh.
and it's actually even creating entirely new ones.
Let's break those down a little bit. What does it look like when AI is actually, replacing work?
So think about tasks that are, very routine, very repetitive. So things like data entry, scheduling appointments, maybe even aspects of coding.
Mhm.
These are all things that AI is becoming very good at.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it can even do them, I'd say, more efficiently than humans.
So it's not necessarily about jobs disappearing, but certain, parts of jobs are becoming automated?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's not all about replacing.
Okay.
AI can also complement what humans do.
I see.
So imagine things like, a doctor using AI to help analyze medical images.
Uh-huh.
Or, a financial analyst using AI to spot fraud.
Right.
It's kind of like having this superpowered assistant working alongside you.
Right. So instead of replacing the human, it's actually making them better at their job.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Now, you also mentioned that AI is creating some entirely new jobs. Tell me more about that. What kind of jobs are we talking about?
Well, this is where I think things get really interesting.
Okay.
As AI becomes, more integrated into our systems, we need people who can actually build it, train it, and explain it.
Right.
So you have roles emerging, like, for instance, AI trainers,
Okay.
who actually teach AI how to perform specific tasks.
So interesting.
You have AI explainers who can kind of translate what the AI is doing for those of us who don't speak code.
So in a way, they're bridging the gap between this really complex technology and the everyday user. That's going to be essential as this technology keeps advancing.
Right. And then you have AI sustainers, who are kind of the folks making sure that AI is used ethically and responsibly.
Okay.
And that's a role that's, I think, only going to become more critical as AI becomes, more powerful.
It sounds like a lot of these jobs require a really unique combination of technical skills and like an understanding of how humans interact with this technology.
Yeah, it's a very interesting blend.
That's fascinating.
And it kind of speaks to the fact that AI isn't just about, lines of code. It's about how we choose to integrate this technology into our lives and our work.
Right, right. But let's face it, I mean, a lot of people are worried about AI's impact on, their livelihoods.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the big question. Is AI good or bad for workers overall?
It's a question everyone is asking. And I think the answer is it's really complicated.
Okay.
There are definitely potential benefits and drawbacks.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it depends on factors like, how it's implemented, company culture, government policies.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Let's start with some of the potential benefits.
Okay.
What are some of the ways that AI could actually make work better?
Well, I think one of the biggest potential upsides is increased productivity.
Okay.
Especially for those in roles where AI can take over some of those more routine tasks.
Right.
Imagine all the time that could be freed up to focus on more, creative, strategic, or even meaningful work.
Instead of being bogged down by the busy work, people could be using their skills and talents in new ways.
Exactly.
Now, what about the downsides? What are some of the potential negative impacts of AI on workers?
Well, I think the biggest concern is job displacement. As AI gets more and more sophisticated, I think it's understandable that people are worried about whether it will automate their jobs out of existence.
It's that classic robots are taking our jobs scenario.
Exactly.
So what does the research say about that fear?
Well, it's important to acknowledge that some jobs will definitely be automated.
Okay.
And that will require people to adapt and learn new skills. But I think it's also important to remember that AI creates new opportunities as well.
Right, like those AI trainer and explainer roles that we were just talking about.
Exactly. So I think the key is really preparing for those shifts and making sure that people have the training and support that they need to thrive in, this AI-powered world.
So it's less about jobs disappearing and more about jobs evolving.
I think that's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
But there are other concerns too. There's the potential for AI to be used in ways that are actually detrimental to workers.
Okay.
So, for instance, we're seeing the rise of this thing called algorithmic management, where AI is used to monitor and evaluate employees, sometimes in ways that can feel very invasive or even unfair.
So instead of a human boss, you've got an algorithm tracking your every move.
That's right.
That sounds a little dystopian.
Yeah, and I think it definitely raises a lot of concerns about worker privacy and autonomy.
Right.
And this is why it's so important that we're having these conversations now so we can shape how this technology is implemented in the workplace.
So it sounds like AI's impact on work is, kind of a mixed bag, the potential for both good and bad outcomes.
Absolutely.
So how do we make sure that the good outweighs the bad?
That's the million-dollar question. And I think it starts with understanding that AI isn't this uncontrollable force.
Okay.
It's actually a tool that we can choose to use in different ways.
Okay.
And to kind of illustrate this, I want to share a really fascinating study that looked at how the same AI system was actually implemented in two different companies.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about the study. What happened?
So in one company, the AI system ended up creating what the researchers called an algorithmic cage.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, it restricted worker autonomy.
I see.
People felt kind of trapped by this technology. But then in the other company, which had a very different culture, a different approach, the same AI system became what they called an algorithmic colleague.
Wow, same technology, totally different outcome.
Right.
So powerful.
So in that company, it actually supported workers. And it helped them to actually be more productive.
That really emphasizes the human element here and how big of a role that plays. What can we learn from these contrasting examples?
Well, I think what's so fascinating is that the difference wasn't in the technology itself. It was about the culture of those organizations and how leadership chose to actually use AI.
So it's not just about the what, it's about the how.
Exactly. And it really highlights how important it is to be really intentional about how we integrate AI into our workplaces.
Right. So it's not just about the technology itself. It's also about the human choices and values that shape how it's implemented.
Absolutely.
It makes me think about how important it is to be informed and aware of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to this really, I think, essential concept for navigating the future of work in an AI-driven world.
AI literacy.
AI literacy.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing. Tell me more about what that means and why it's so important.
Sure. So essentially, AI literacy is the ability to understand and work effectively with AI.
Okay.
So it's about having, a basic grasp of how it works, its strengths, its limitations, and its ethical implications.
It sounds like something we should definitely all be striving for.
It is. And we're going to dive deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
So stay tuned. I can't wait. So we've talked about how AI is changing the nature of work, but what does it mean to be AI literate? I have to admit, it sounds a little intimidating.
It's actually more accessible than you might think. AI literacy doesn't mean everyone needs to become like a programmer or a data scientist.
Okay.
It's really about developing a basic understanding of, what AI is, how it works, and how it can be used ethically and effectively.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. But where do we even start? Like, how can someone become AI literate?
Well, there are a few, I'd say, key areas to focus on. First, it helps to have some basic technical understanding.
Okay.
You don't need to know how to build an algorithm from scratch.
Right.
But being familiar with concepts like, say, machine learning, natural language processing, these things can really help you understand what's happening kind of under the hood.
So it's about being able to understand the technology on a conceptual level, even if you're not the one writing the code yourself.
Exactly.
What else is involved?
Another crucial aspect is understanding how to work effectively with AI.
Okay.
So think about it like collaborating with a teammate who has, unique strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
You need to know how to delegate tasks to AI, how to interpret its output,
Right.
and basically how to work together to achieve, shared goals.
That's a great analogy. It's not about replacing human work, but rather figuring out how humans and AI can kind of work together in a way that benefits both.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the ethical dimension, which is absolutely crucial.
Right.
AI literacy means being aware of, the potential biases embedded in algorithms, understanding how AI might impact, say, job security, and being able to advocate for responsible AI development.
I can see how that ethical awareness becomes even more important as AI is more integrated into our lives. It's not just about the technical stuff, it's about the human consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And lastly, I would emphasize the importance of lifelong learning when it comes to AI. This field is evolving so rapidly. There are new breakthroughs happening all the time. So being adaptable and staying curious is key.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like we're all kind of on this learning curve together, both individually and as a society. So with all that in mind, what are some concrete steps listeners can take to boost their own AI literacy?
Well, there are tons of resources available online.
Okay.
Everything from introductory courses to in-depth articles and even podcasts.
Yeah.
You can also experiment with AI tools yourself. Try using ChatGPT or Daily just to kind of get a feel for how they work.
I'm a big believer in learning by doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes just playing around with these tools is the best way to understand them, and you never know, you might even spark some creative ideas in the process.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Engage with the AI community. There are so many people out there who are passionate about this technology and really eager to share their knowledge.
This has been incredibly helpful for understanding the what and the why of AI literacy. Now I'm curious about the how.
Okay.
What are some real-world examples of how AI is changing specific industries? And let's start with healthcare. How is AI being used in that field?
Healthcare is a great example. It's an industry where AI is already making a really significant impact.
Okay.
One area where it's showing a lot of promise is in medical diagnosis.
Okay.
So AI systems are being trained on these massive data sets of medical images, patient records, and they're becoming remarkably good at identifying patterns that can indicate disease.
So it's like having a second set of eyes, but those eyes have analyzed millions of medical cases and can spot things that even the most experienced doctor might miss.
That's the idea. Of course, AI isn't meant to replace doctors altogether. It's about giving them additional tools and insights to improve diagnosis and treatment decisions.
Makes sense. It's about augmenting human expertise, not replacing it. What are some other ways that AI is being used in healthcare?
Another exciting area is drug discovery and development.
Okay.
So AI can analyze vast amounts of data to identify potential drug candidates and predict how they might interact with the human body.
Wow.
This could significantly speed up the drug development process and lead to, new treatments for diseases that are currently really difficult to treat.
So AI being used to potentially find new cures, save lives.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. It sounds like there's a lot of potential for good here.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
But we also need to be aware of the ethical considerations, especially in a field as sensitive as healthcare. So, for instance, how do we ensure that these AI-powered diagnostic tools are accurate and unbiased? How do we protect patient privacy when dealing with sensitive medical data?
Those are some really important questions, and it highlights how AI literacy isn't just about understanding the technology itself.
Yeah.
It's also about grappling with these ethical questions and making sure that we're using AI responsibly.
Exactly. And these same ethical concerns apply to other industries as well. Let's take the finance industry, for example. AI is being used for things like fraud detection, algorithmic trading, personalized financial advice.
Right.
But it also raises questions about fairness, transparency, and the potential for bias in decision-making.
I can see how that could be really problematic, especially when you're dealing with, people's money and financial well-being.
Yeah.
It seems like we need to find that balance between harnessing the power of AI,
Yeah.
but then also ensuring that it's used in a way that benefits everyone and not just a select few.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have diverse voices and perspectives involved in the development and deployment of these AI systems. We need to make sure that these technologies are aligned with human values and that they're designed to serve the needs of society as a whole.
It sounds like AI is really pushing us to think deeply about what kind of future we want to create. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about, what kind of world do we want to live in and how can we use AI to actually make that world a better place?
That's a great way to put it. AI has the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. But it also has the potential to exacerbate existing inequalities if we're not careful.
So it's not just about the what of AI, but also the how and the why. It's about making conscious choices about how we develop and implement this technology.
Exactly. And that's where I think the conversation about AI and the future of work needs to go.
Okay.
It's not enough to just talk about the technical aspects. We need to talk about the human aspects, the ethical aspects, the societal implications.
It makes me think about how important it is for, everyone to be part of this conversation, not just the people who are working directly in the field of AI.
You're absolutely right. AI is going to impact all of us, so we all need to be informed and engaged.
Right.
We need to be asking questions, challenging assumptions, thinking critically about how this technology is being used and how it might shape our future.
That's a powerful message. And it brings us back to that research article you mentioned at the start of our deep dive. It talked about future of work skills.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear more about what those might be. What will people need to know, be able to do to thrive in this AI-powered world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's one that researchers and educators are grappling with right now. While it's impossible to predict exactly what the future holds, there are some key skills that are likely to be in high demand.
Okay, let's dive into those skills. What are some of the key areas where people should be focusing their attention? Okay, let's dive into those skills. What are some of the key areas where people should be focusing their attention?
One area that really stands out is this ability to work effectively at the intersection of humans and AI.
Okay.
So this means understanding, both the capabilities and the limitations of AI, being able to communicate with AI systems, knowing how to integrate AI into workflows in a way that actually enhances human performance.
So it's not about being replaced by AI, but about becoming a really good AI collaborator.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What are some other essential skills?
Well, critical thinking and problem-solving abilities are going to be more important than ever.
Yeah.
AI can help us automate routine tasks, process information really quickly, but it's still humans who need to define the problems,
Right.
ask the right questions, and evaluate the solutions that AI generates.
So those higher order thinking skills that are uniquely human are going to be even more valuable in the future. We're not just turning over the reins to the machines. We're
Right.
figuring out how to use them intelligently.
Exactly.
What other skills come to mind?
Creativity.
Okay.
That's another area that's likely to see a surge in demand. As AI takes over more of those, routine and analytical tasks, there's going to be even more need for humans to generate new ideas.
Right.
Come up with innovative solutions. Think outside the box.
It's almost like AI is freeing up our minds to focus on the things that humans are really best at. Imagining, creating, innovating.
Exactly, yeah. And those so-called soft skills that we often take for granted, things like communication, collaboration, emotional intelligence,
You're right.
those are actually going to become even more essential in an AI-powered world.
I can see why. As AI takes over more of the technical tasks, the ability to build relationships, understand and respond to human emotions,
Yeah.
work effectively in teams, those are going to be major differentiators. It's almost like the rise of AI is reminding us what it truly means to be human.
That's a really insightful observation. As AI becomes more advanced, it's our uniquely human qualities that are going to set us apart and make us valuable.
Uh-huh.
And this brings us back to the importance of AI literacy.
Yep.
It's not just about understanding the technology.
It's about understanding ourselves and how we can best leverage AI to augment our strengths and create, a better future. This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've gone from feeling a bit overwhelmed by AI to actually being excited about the possibilities.
That's great to hear.
What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will walk away with today?
Well, first, I hope listeners understand that AI isn't something to be feared,
Okay.
but rather something to be embraced.
Uh-huh.
It's a powerful tool that can be used to improve our lives in countless ways.
Right.
But it's up to us to shape how it's developed and used.
It's about taking an active role in shaping the future of AI rather than being passive bystanders.
Absolutely.
What else should listeners keep in mind?
AI literacy is essential no matter what your background or profession.
Okay.
Understanding the basics of AI, its potential benefits and risks, the ethical considerations involved, these are all going to be crucial for navigating this rapidly changing landscape.
It's like that old saying, knowledge is power. The more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions about its role in our lives.
Exactly. And lastly, I would just encourage listeners to be curious and open-minded.
Yeah.
The field of AI is constantly evolving, so stay engaged, keep learning. And don't be afraid to, experiment, try new things.
I love that. It's a reminder that this is an ongoing journey of discovery, not a destination.
Right.
And who knows, maybe some of our listeners will end up being the ones shaping the future of AI.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. AI is a field with so much potential, and it's really open to anyone who's willing to learn and contribute.
This deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking, and I really appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of AI and the future of work.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations, and I hope it's inspired our listeners to keep exploring this fascinating topic.
To all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep digging deeper into AI. Explore those resources we mentioned, play around with AI tools, and most importantly, keep asking questions. The future of work is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.